All right, on to question number 4. Dear Mr. Stu, I am both a teacher and a parent. That sounds like a lot of living that you do. And I am seeing a trend happen that you seem to address in some of your videos. The trend is that it doesn't seem like kids are able to just get along with each other. There is a trend there, isn't there? I've observed that my kids have been bickering more than usual, often over the smallest things, like who gets to use the TV remote, which, let me tell you this, that is not a small thing to a kid. That is not a small thing at all to a kid. Who gets to use the TV remote? That means you get dibs on everything that people are watching. You get dibs on volume. That's not a small deal to a kid. So let's reframe that just real quick. It might be small to you, but to them, that's a big deal. It's becoming quite stressful for everyone at home, and I worry about the impact this might have on their relationship. What strategies can I use to help them get along better and foster a more harmonious environment at home? I can tell you're a teacher by the vocabulary that you used. Yes, this happens all the time, and especially as kids are getting older, which that's what they do. They don't get younger, they get older. As kids get older and they start to understand the world a little bit more and they start to understand their siblings a little bit more, there does seem to be that trend to more fighting rather than less fighting. And then eventually there's less fighting, but it's kind of no fighting, we get along, we do great, and then this pretty long period of a lot of fighting, and then it starts to kind of come down more. So just know you are in the same boat as every other parent, that if you have more than one child, they're going to bicker with each other, they're going to fight with each other. Sometimes they are going to have knockdown, dragouts with each other. It doesn't mean just to allow those things, but it does mean to understand that that's typical behavior at times. The other thing to understand is that kids are less engaged in real social situations now. Situations that we in mental health call in vivo, in real life situations. It just happens less. Most of the time, kids' interactions are happening online, or through a video game, through texting, through other means of communication rather than face-to-face. And because of that, they're less prepared to handle situations that come up face to face. They just haven't had as much practice with it. If you've watched any of my videos, you may know that one thing I say often is the first time you do anything, you'll be bad at it. And really the first several times you do most things, you're going to be bad at it. So just know kids are new at this and they're just getting their first shots at trying out how to get along with each other. So they're going to be bad at it for a while. They're going to bicker about seemingly small things. They might have big arguments or big fights about things that don't seem to be worth that much attention. Those things are going to happen, not because there's anything huge and major and difficult going on, but just because they're bad at it and they're learning how to get better at it, but they're going to mess up along the way. So fewer social situations overall, and even if they have had several social situations, they're still just kids. So they're still learning how to do this, and they're still just getting going at their practice of being able to resolve conflict with each other. But that's my advice to you, is to allow them to resolve that conflict with one another. When appropriate, or when possible, or when safe, if kids are allowed to resolve the conflict with each other, then they'll understand what is worth getting upset about and what is not worth getting upset about. Because if I get upset about it, no one else is going to handle it for me. I'm going to have to do the work. So if I am going to get upset about this, if I'm going to cause a big deal about this, if I'm going to argue about this, or if I'm going to say something about this person and nobody's going to resolve it for me, nobody's going to tell them what to do, nobody's going to tell me what to do, but I know I am going to have to resolve this situation, then it causes kids to think about, is this really something that I want to enter into? Because I know there's no safety net. There's nobody who's going to do it for me. And sometimes there's an increase in conflict, especially over those seemingly very small things and those just bickering fights back and forth because adults have stepped in too often and resolved it for the kids. And so now they see like, oh, well, anything that I want to cause an argument about or anything that I want to bicker about or anything I want to fight about, it's okay. I don't have to use much energy. They're going to solve it all for me. I just get to do the fun part. I just get to do the argument. I don't have to do any of the cleanup. So if you cause kids to have to do more of the cleanup, then they will be more likely to decide before engaging in an argument if that argument is going to be worth the cleanup they're going to have to do. You can be there to mediate conversations. You can be there to help them work through it and help them come to a resolution, but you can help them do it rather than you doing it for them, rather than saying, you need to apologize, or you need to give that toy to your brother, or you need to leave them alone, or it's their turn with the remote. Rather than that, you can be there as they are working through the conflict, but they are the ones who are working through the conflict. Now, let me go back to what I said at the beginning of this question. The first several times that kids do this, they are going to be bad at it. They're going to come up with some things as punishments or as payback that are not appropriate, that are not good responses or positive responses to the situations that they've been put in. That doesn't mean stop letting them try. It just means that's why you're there to help them mediate. If somebody snatched the remote from somebody else and you're there and you say, okay, let's see, how are you guys going to work this out? Kids' faces will be like, what do you mean? We're going to work it out. Yep, you're going to work it out. What do you think needs to happen? We're going to turn the TV off until you guys are able to figure out what needs to happen. I'm here. What do you think needs to happen? Do you see how much more responsibility you've placed on the child, but how that it's completely appropriate? Hey, you've chosen to argue about this thing. I'm going to help you resolve that argument. Let's see what's going on. What do you guys think needs to happen? And as you put that responsibility back on them, over time they'll be like, you know what? Last time that took 20 minutes to resolve it. It is not even worth. I will just wait until the next show, and that's when I'll get the TV remote. Because they'll see that required effort. Right now, you are the one putting in all the effort. And that's one of the things that can be very frustrating as a parent is, why are my kids bickering all the time? It's driving me crazy. Well, if your kids are bickering all the time and you are constantly feeling the need to step in and solve it for them, yes, it's going to feel very overwhelming and you are going to get burnt out real fast. But if they are constantly arguing and then you step in and you say, all right, let's see what you can come up with to resolve this. Now it's much less pressure on you as a parent. You are just helping them to navigate this conversation as they work it out. And it can even be a whole lot of fun. You might feel much less overwhelmed. And then over time, you'll be like, I cannot wait for them to get in their next argument because I get to mediate the conversation. It might not be like that, but over time, it becomes less responsibility and less pressure on you. And you are placing more responsibility and more pressure on them. Take responsibility for these arguments that they started. It would be like if they go through and they trash a room. If you come along every time and you just clean up the room, well, why would they ever clean up the room on their own? The same can be true with arguments and especially bickering. If you are constantly the one doing all of the cleanup, what makes them want to do any of the cleanup? And yes, I'm going to make a mess because it's so much easier and it's so much more fun than just letting this go. Put some more responsibility on them to resolve their own conflict, and then you'll see the conflict come down and you'll see those social skills start to grow as they navigate those conversations together. There might still be times where you have to step in. If it ever becomes unsafe, or if there's ever actual physical aggression or violence, or it's just becoming hateful, definitely step in. That one was too big for them to handle on their own. But if it's just that bickering and just, little sibling fights and things like that, step in, help them figure it out together, and then you are taking responsibility off of yourself and placing it on them, and they have to own their actions. Great. Thank you so much for that question. Again, if you have a question, you can write in at Mr. Stu TV. That's MisterStu TV on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Or you can write an email to question@mrstutv.com, and there I'll get to it